This is the Hub on Hollywood. I'm James. Jamie is not here, but we still love movies. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's Hub on Hollywood. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. We are at Hub on Hollywood. We're also on Facebook. The likes and the shares really do help out. If you are watching us on YouTube, but you're on the go, you don't have time to look and watch all this on YouTube. We are streaming on every major streaming service, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and vice versa. If you're listening to us and you just want to see my face, the background, Jamie when she eventually comes back, we are on YouTube, so please hit like and subscribe. It really does help out. Now, on this week's episode, we have a lot of jam-packed stuff, a lot of exciting stuff that we're trying to fit into this very small package. But we will be talking about local casting calls in the greater Boston area in Massachusetts. Also, Massachusetts native Elizabeth Banks being honored by Harvard University tonight. We will be talking and explaining why that's happening. And we are rounding off this episode with a review of The Gentleman, starring Matthew McConaughey, Charlie Hunnam, and Hugh Grant. Really great film that I saw yesterday. We will get to that. But first, casting calls. We've been talking about casting calls for the past several weeks, in particular for one Disney film, a big production feature-length film that's taking place and shooting all across Massachusetts, including in Boston, in Malden, in Marblehead. This is the sequel for the film, the live-action adaptation of Cinderella. It's titled Frills, but we're hearing that it may be called, the final name may be called Godmother or Godmothered, but we have more casting calls for this big Disney flick that's filming here. Now, for this casting call, kind of specific, we are looking for women with gray or white hair who know how to knit. That's right, women with gray or white hair who know how to knit. This is paid extra work filming in the greater Boston region, and this is taking place on March 10th through the 13th and also on the 17th. So if you or you know somebody who fits that description, women with gray or white hair who know how to knit, you can email your resume, your headshots, everything else, videos to Boston Casting Frills, FRILLS, @gmail.com, bostoncastingfrills@gmail.com. Every week we hear more and more casting calls for this film, so it's kind of a big deal. You're gonna want to hop on this before all those casting calls slots are filled. Our next casting call. This is looking for. We have folks looking for Boston Casting also looking for a running double. They're looking for a male, dark hair, facial hair, around 6 foot, 6'3", so I am out of the running, no pun intended. This person, they would like this person to weigh around 160, 180. They have to be in good physical shape and able to run for a long period of time. Again, I'm clearly not suited for this, but maybe you are. The shooting takes place on February 19th, 21st, and the 24th. This is a paid gig, and so you can send your photo, your resume, and your contact information to bostoncastingSubmit@gmail.com. bostoncastingSubmit@gmail.com. So you may not have to be you don't have to be a really good actor for this. You may just be a really good runner, but you can still make it on the big screen, and something very exciting to look into. Number 3, another casting call. Now, this one's a little different. Now, you are probably not going to be appearing on screen, but your baby may. Now, there's a feature film titled Shrine. It's looking for cars that these cars would be used in the background of some scenes. Filming taking place in Clinton, Massachusetts on February 7th. Now, they're not very descriptive of what kind of car they're looking for, but they say they are not looking for newer cars. This is through Boston Casting, so go to bostoncasting.com, sign up, submit all your information, and include details about any cars you may own that you may want to see other people driving around, or maybe just see in the background as people talk in front of them. Still very cool. Last casting call for this week. Now we're looking for a kid, a young talented actor. Now Kids Casting, they are looking for a boy between 5 and 10 years old for the digital series Love Undone. This is shooting in Boston. This series is described as a spin-off of the digital drama series Unconditional Love. This explores the complex and nuanced relationship of two unconventional couples. And so, once again, they're looking for a boy, African-American, between 5 and 10 years old, to play a character named C.J. Jones, if I remember correctly, because I did not write that down. But go to kidscasting.com if you or you know somebody fits that description for this digital series, again, once called Love Undone. Now that we have all the casting calls out of the way, let's move on to Elizabeth Banks. You may have seen her, you may have heard from her. She's kind of like a big deal. She's been in the Pitch Perfect series. She just recently directed and wrote the reboot of Charlie's Angels. Well, according to the Associated Press, actor and director Elizabeth Banks is being honored as Woman of the Year by Harvard University's famed Hasty Pudding Theater Troupe. The Hunger Games star will be paraded through Harvard Square and then awarded a golden pudding pot following a celebratory roast tonight. Hasty Pudding says it picked Banks because she's a role model for women in Hollywood. The 45-year-old Massachusetts native directed 2015's Pitch Perfect 2 and produced, wrote, directed, and appeared in last year's performance of Angels, or Charlie's Angels, the reboot. Now, the student troupe says this year's performance boasts a majority female cast, a female writer, and female producers. Now, this award was established, a little bit of background, was established in 1951. The Woman of the Year award has been given to many notable and talented entertainers. This is according to hastypudding.org. They include Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts, Scarlett Johansson, Anne Hathaway, Kerry Washington, and most recently Bryce Dallas Howard, the 69th Woman of the Year. So kudos goes out to Elizabeth Banks. She's an amazing actress. I believe she got her break years ago when she played. Now, what film was it? It says right here, but she's been going all around. I think her big role was in Seabiscuit with Tobey Maguire. I think it was 10 plus years ago. But she's been in a bunch of other movies. Catch Me If You Can. Zach and Murray Make a Porno. The 40-Year-Old Virgin. She's been in Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi trilogy. So good for her. Kudos to the Massachusetts native. Hub on Hollywood congratulates you. You go, Elizabeth Banks. Am I just babbling now? Possibly. This is what happens when Jamie's not around to rein me in. Well, let's talk about the movie The Gentleman. I just watched this yesterday, and it's a Guy Ritchie film, written by Guy Ritchie, and it's I like it. I give it 2 thumbs up. It's very fast-paced. It may be a little difficult to follow in the first 20 minutes or so, but once you get past that, it's a pretty fast-paced, entertaining, funny movie. Now, The Gentleman follows an American drug lord living in London, played by Matthew McConaughey, who tries selling his highly profitable marijuana empire. Well, it triggers a story of schemes, bribery, blackmail, and the attempt to steal his domain from under him. Now, as I mentioned, this is directed by Guy Ritchie, written by Guy Ritchie, Ivan Atkinson, and Marv Davies. Now, Guy Ritchie, this comes off his latest film. He just wrote and directed Aladdin. This movie, however, far contrast. No Disney politically correct things in this film at all. This is a Guy Ritchie film. It's being compared to one of his earlier films, Snatch, which has become this cult classic, this huge favorite film of his. This movie starring Matthew McConaughey, the cast, grade A. Matthew McConaughey, he's playing Mickey Pearson. Charlie Hunnam, he plays Ray. Colin Farrell's in this movie. He is a coach. Hugh Grant Fletcher, he plays this sleazy, grimy kind of tabloid, private eye, per se, who tries to, bribe a few characters in this movie. And we also follow Henry Golding as Dry Eye, the character. Now, I think you should go see this movie in theaters while it's still out. This just came out last week. I just got around to it, but this is a very funny, well-directed, well-paced, and a film with a great cast in general. Everybody is on their point. They know what movie they're making, and I recommend it. The movie follows Mickey Pearson and Ray, his right-hand man, played by Charlie Hunnam. The movie is also being told at the same time through the perspective of Hugh Grant's character, Fletcher. Now, Mickey, as I mentioned before, he's trying to retire in peace, but in a well-off manner. So he's trying to sell off his empire, but he wants a good price for it. And this sets into motion other drug lords trying to plot and scheme against him. This film is fast-paced, it's crude, it's violent. As I mentioned, it's funny. The film is very reminiscent to Guy Ritchie's last film, Snatch. Now, I've heard some criticisms, but I don't see it. Now, some reviews that I've looked at and I've seen, they've said that this film, and there is some merit to some of the criticism, I understand for sure, but some reviews that I found say that the story is messy, hard to follow. Now, I will admit this, there are a lot of characters in this film you kind of have to keep track of, and with how fast-paced this movie is, as I mentioned, the first 20 minutes, if you can stick through the first, I would say maybe even 15 minutes, if you can stick through that, you should be fine throughout the rest of the film. It's an hour, 53 minutes long, not that long, but again, the fast pace of it makes it seem much shorter. But the characters, I had heard or seen reviews that the characters are boring. I completely, wholeheartedly disagree. Each of the characters, I think they're very colorful. They're very charismatic, charming. Again, sleazy. When I think sleazy, I'm thinking about Hugh Grant's character. A far cry from movies in years past that he's done. He's no longer the charming the charming guy who stutters like me, who can charm any woman just by his little. Just his personality. This is a different character that Hugh Grant is playing, and he plays it well. He knows how to play a tabloid sleazy guy very well, and he gets lost in this role. So I didn't think the characters were boring at all. I thought they were very fleshed out. Now, as for some of the other characters, Charlie Hunnam, he plays the character Ray, and if I could put all my notes together. Ray, he is this guy who's very serious about his job. Again, he's Matthew McConaughey's right-hand man. He's willing to do anything, and he knows how to do anything. When Charlie Hunnam is in a scene, he commands attention, and when he's speaking, no one else is speaking. And so this may be his best role. He's been in Sons of Anarchy. He's been in King Arthur, I think in the past year or two. I didn't see that one. I heard mixed reviews, but I think in this film, Charlie Hunnam, he owns this role, and this may possibly be the best film that he's been in. Now, as I mentioned, this is a very fast-paced film. If anything, that may be the draw. There are several plot points going on in this film, and if you aren't totally invested, if you stop paying attention for just a little bit, you can get lost. And so that's the only criticism that I can give to it. But the dialogue is great. It's funny. It's fantastic. Guy Ritchie knows how to write dialogue and make it punchy. And the action scenes. Let me tell you about the action scenes. The action scenes are very well done. A lot of blood. There's some scenes where there's a lot of blood, a lot of shooting. So if you're not into that, I'm not sure if this would be your film. But if you liked Snatch, I think you will really like this movie. Guy Ritchie going back to the Guy Ritchie feel, and so that's my take on this review. Nothing too stellar, nothing too crazy, but I would recommend seeing this before it leaves theaters. Once again, it came out about a week ago, but I would definitely go see it. Well, this was a pretty quick, short to the point episode of the Hub on Hollywood. We will be back. I promise, Jamie, we'll be back soon, and we can, go back and forth a little more into our fandom for Star Wars and Marvel movies. I just saw the newest or latest trailer for Black Widow starring Scarlett Johansson. And so that looks good. We may be talking about that next week. But if you've seen The Gentleman, what are your thoughts? Were you hook, line, and sinker as soon as this movie started, or did the movie have to grow on you for you to kind of, start following pace? What else have you watched? If not, let me know. What should we talk about? What should we review? But again, this was the Hub on Hollywood. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Once again, if you are not following us on Twitter or Instagram, please do. We are at Hub on Hollywood. We're also on YouTube. You can also catch us on any major streaming service. Until next week, I'm James. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Hub on Hollywood.